Hi, we're live.
Hi, everyone. Kim here again, back with our second episode of Inside the Incubator. Sitting next to me is Wei Yule from the Coconino Small Business Development Center, which you guys did not see last week because he was in a meeting.
It's nice to be here. Thanks, Kim.
And we're sitting next to each other because we couldn't get his computer to work. And then also joining me from the Maricopa Center for Entrepreneurship, I have the hardest time saying that word, which is bad considering.
That's what we call it, MCE.
Yeah, is Dan. So welcome. And today we're going to talk a little bit about, well, a lot about money. I sort of wanted to structure it to talk about sort of a topic per episode to give people reference to get online and watch the things that were important. And we all know that small business owners struggle with money. So my first question is, because I get this question a lot from people, is how important is money, and does it really matter? Because sometimes I think it's overemphasized how important it is when you're first starting. So what are your thoughts about the whole money, and how do you tell people who are panicking about it? What do you tell them?
Well, there's always alternatives if you don't have money, one, to whether you need it or not, and always different ways to raise money if you absolutely need it. So if you're panicking about it, I think the important part to remember is that there is a solution. What that solution is going to be is going to vary, obviously.
What do you tell people?
I talked to actually a nonprofit client today who's creating a big event, and they've developed this $150,000 budget for this year, and I'm going, that's going to be almost impossible to raise that amount of money in this short of time, in this economy, in this town. Create a MVP, minimum viable product, even though it's a nonprofit. Figure out what that smallest thing is, and then work on funding that piece of it. I think the same thing with a profit company is don't start out trying to get $100 million to start with. Get enough money together from whatever source to create the smallest possible minimalist product you can. Start there.
So what do you tell people, like, if they think they need more money, like they want to go after money, when are they ready to do that? I mean, is there a time when that's better for them?
They need to make sure they've got their own money and their own investment in it before they go after somebody else's. So if you're not willing to second mortgage your home, or if you're not willing to dip into your retirement, if you don't believe enough in yourself or your business for that, how can you get other people to believe in it to give you money? So when is it time to go after money? After yours is exhausted is maybe checklist number one on that.
When you don't need it?
You still need more. Make sure yours is gone first.
The other one I'm hearing a lot of is when you're starting to make some kind of revenue, when you can show some kind of revenue stream. Either, I want to say real or imagined. I mean, a real revenue stream where you're actually getting something in, and maybe the imagined is where you can show an investor that people do want to buy it, people are ready to commit their money. Some of the tests that they're running with business canvases are, you create a website and you take it all the way up to click here to buy, and then instead of actually taking their money, you give them a reservation or something like that. Look at Tesla. How many reservations, how many deposits did he take for a product that's not fully developed yet?
I know, that was crazy, right? What was it? That number was so high.
Worth 300,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. $82 million worth of sales. Yeah.
And not even getting the product until next year.
And it only starts next year. But right. Try to put that into our clients. I think that too many of our clients worry about what the product is and making it the best it can be before they ever go try to figure out whether somebody really wants to buy it. It's almost like, go do something, create a prototype, create a website, fake it, go sell it. If you get people to buy it, that will draw the money. You'll find the money. But if you're trying to spend all your money creating a prototype that may or may not sell, what's the point?
Right, I was going to say that pre-sales, I mean, looking at actual ways to raise money when you're at that point. You've got the classic friends, fools, and family that'll give you money, hopefully, without expecting much or anything in return. But then after that, we now have crowdfunding, which is really starting to take off. That takes a lot of time to do and to really generate the income or the funds that you're probably looking for. But that's another thing that you can do is trade money for time. So like you were saying, Dan, if you want $1 million to create this prototype, well, what can you do to minimize that? What's the minimum viable product that maybe you only need $100,000 to get it rolling? And then once that starts to take off, then you can ask for the rest of the money because you know it's going to work. And I really like what you're saying about pre-sales. That's a great way to generate income and not really have to do anything. Well, I mean, you've got to have the product. It's not something that you have to.
You don't even have the product.
Say that again?
You don't have to have the product. You just really have to have the ability to create the product.
Right. You have to have the marketing behind it and saying, yeah, this is coming. And then hopefully with that pre-sale money, you can produce the product.
Yeah, hopefully.
It's the shoe company that essentially did that. They didn't know if they could sell shoes online. So they sold shoes and then they ran down to like Payless Shoe Store. Yeah, they ran down to Payless and bought the shoes and shipped them. So they operated at a loss, but they realized they could make money and the concept worked and they were able to get investors.
Yeah.
So from that, I have two questions. One was on crowdfunding because a lot of smaller entrepreneurs are going in that direction to raise funds for whatever they're raising funds for. But do you think that crowdfunding is starting to almost sort of water down the market a little bit? Like it's not as exciting to crowdfund right now because so many people are doing it. What do you think about that? Like I feel like I used to get really excited when I see somebody doing something, and now I get these things in my feeds and emails all the time that now I'm not nearly as excited about the next thing that's coming down that pike.
I think it's like any business or service. It starts out and you get your early adopters and then it starts to take off and more people enter the market and the market gets saturated and now it's not exciting anymore.
Plus, there are too many people out there with a hope and a prayer, no really good idea, but all of a sudden now they're going to get funding. I've had people come to me and say, well, I ran this campaign and didn't get any response. Well, yeah, you had no product. You had a vague idea. It wasn't even a good idea. And now you're expecting people just to throw money at you. That's not realistic.
Yeah.
So now you have to really be differentiated. You have to be really creative to create a good crowdfunding movement. So again, it's like any business or service. The market's saturated. So how are you different?
Yeah.
So my other question around that is like, I'm all about bootstrapping. Like that's like, the next, I think it's one of the big terms that is going on around here, just putting it together, however you can put it together. It's how we put together our businesses when we did that a while back. But how do you, in your own mind, bootstrapping, I think is sort of a mindset because you're sort of being scrappy and trying to get it together. How do you make that transition into getting out of the bootstrapping mindset and into okay, now my product is making money, and do I want to even let people in? Like, do I want to even give part of my company away to have more funds available? How does that work?
I think go ahead, Dan.
Well, I think it's interesting because I want to say yes and no. I mean, it's like I think the worst entrepreneurs are the ones that lose the bootstrapping mentality and start all of a sudden they have the ability to get money and they take it and they waste it, rather than keeping the bootstrap mentality where it's lean and mean, and take that money and just take the bigger chunk of money that you've gotten and be lean and mean with it and grow better faster. That's not to say you can be cheap about it. It's just be as controlling as you always were. Don't just throw it away.
Yeah, I think bootstrapping makes you be creative about how to run the business. And once you don't have to be creative, then typically you aren't. So I like the idea of continuing to bootstrap and be creative and figure out how to, you have to figure out how to make things work when you don't have the cash behind it. And that's where some of the best ideas come from. When you get that chunk of money and everything's easy, you don't have to be creative anymore.
Yeah. The chunk of money that is basically that you throw it against the wall and hope that some of it sticks. When you're bootstrapping, you can't afford that. You've got to make every cent count. And you find ways to use your money, or not use money.
Do you have, I'd be interested to know, because like I'm sort of the mentality, if I start something, I don't really want to give any of it away. Like I want to keep it all. I want to bootstrap because I want to reap the rewards. I feel like no one's going to be as invested in it as I am, and I don't want money. I don't know. That's just sort of my mentality. Like if I can do it myself, I want to do it myself. Do you have clients that are like that you're trying to steer into thinking bigger?
Yeah, I talked to a couple last night, and they told me about a competitor that started out at the same time they did. Now the competitor has become a big company, and they're still struggling small. And I think part of it is that they insisted on bootstrapping even though funds were available. Where I don't know this for a fact, but I believe my thought would be the other company had more dollars to invest originally, and therefore were able to generate a higher return on investment.
I think at a certain point that you do need to get money to grow. I mean, if you need more equipment or more office space or whatever it is that you need, and you really need that to grow, then it's okay to go ahead and go after some more money.
Absolutely.
But I think from what Kim's saying is if you're in that position, don't go after an equity investor. If you're making money and you've been in business for a few years, go to the bank and get a regular, business loan and go into debt. Personal debt's terrible, stay out of that. But business debt is good. You get a nice tax write-off, and it can really catapult your company forward. So don't be afraid of debt with your company. It's something that you should probably have.
And maybe the other question is, what does the investor bring to the table besides the money?
Yeah,
if they're bringing a marketplace, if they're bringing, entry into a marketplace, if they're bringing, connections to manufacturing or other kinds of financing, what else are they bringing to the table? Because if you can get the money, if you've got revenue and you can bring in the money, you don't need cheap money, you need quality money.
That's a really good point. I think what the investor, let me start that over. I think people go after money for the money's sake and don't realize the power that they have as much of a right to interview people that are looking to invest in them as the investors are interviewing the people they're looking to invest in, that it's really important if you're going to take that kind of investment that you're partnering with the right person that's going to complement you. You don't need someone who has the same connections and skills that you have. You need someone that's going to widen that range a little bit. And I think people get so focused on the money itself that they don't look at the other components of what that looks like.
Yeah, it's almost like raising money as a milestone.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the question around how do you know that you should move from bootstrapping to maybe seeking something is because it is sort of like a milestone. And people want to do it way too early, in my opinion. I mean, I think that's the first thing. They have an idea and they're like, the first thing they're trying to do is figure out when they can start pitching to people. It's like, well, whoa, take a step back. Let's get a business plan together first.
A bit back to what Dan was saying is it's more than the money. It's it's what the investor can bring to the table. But I think it's also the attitude that's important as well. We've got clients that have investors, and the investor just wants a return on the money, and they want it quick, and they're only willing to look at the short term and get their money back and get out, where the company is looking for the long term, saying, yeah, I'd rather pay you over the long term so that we can make a heck of a lot more money and grow the business. So you need to be careful who you're investing in. You need someone who's investing more than just money. They need to invest in the company and in you as well. Even if they're not bringing something technical to the table, they need to have the right attitude to work with you.
So I have one final question, and then we can wrap things up a little bit. When is the right time, if you are seeking an outside investment, when's the right time for a business to start considering that as an option? Like, where are they in their stage of business?
I think they have to be in revenue at least. They have to have somewhere to grow to, which means they're coming from somewhere that they've grown from, if that makes sense. So just to say, I'm starting a business, I need money, probably not. Like you said, yeah, I need money, I don't even have a business plan yet. Not that I'm any proponent of business plans, but you need to have a goal of where you're going. You need to have some marketing out there, maybe have some pre-sales, show that, that the company is viable, people want the product or service, and then use up your own money to get it started and take it to the point where it can't grow anymore without some sort of investment. That's when you know you need the investment.
And then back up 3 months from then.
Yeah, right. Anticipate. But I think it's okay to grow and get to a plateau. Say, oh, we can't grow anymore until we get an investment. Because then you're really showing the worth of the company. Saying, look, if we had your money 3 months ago, we could be at this level. So let's get it now, so in 3 months we're at that level.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is probably an optimal time. It's hard to figure out when that is, because we tend to pitch money too early before we really have a viable product, or we wait till we're starting to choke and it's really hurting the company before we start pitching, and then it takes time to get the money.
Right. So it's sort of, it's almost, it's impossible. Well, and let's not, and it doesn't help that a lot of investment and pitch competitions and all those things happen around a certain period of time, once a year. You have like a season, and you know, if you're not ready, it could be a whole year before you can get in front of some of those investors again.
Yeah. I suspect though a good product can always find an audience.
I think so. But sometimes it's, you know, it goes back to that who you know, and well, and that's one of the benefits of being inside an incubator, right? That's what we tell people, is we have the connections, and those good products are going to rise to the top and get seen and get access.
Yeah,
I agree, and that's the beauty of being in the incubator, is those connections and just that synergy of working with not only other entrepreneurs, but of course the counselors and consultants.
And I believe that we help screen we screen the companies and the products for the investors, and we also screen the investors for the products. We make those connections happen.
Yeah.
Yep, one of the key components. And of course we have the connections for the different programs that are going on with our cities and counties and states to fund small businesses. And that's what it's all about in the incubator, is that information.
Yep.
You guys have anything you want to add before we wind this baby down for the day?
I'll just say, don't let money be the issue. If you don't have the funds to start it, just start with, how do I do this without the funds, and how do I find the money to get it? But just get it started. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Don't be too, don't get hung up on the money. Get hung up on selling the product.
I love that. That was the whole reason why I wanted to talk about this today, because I think people do get hung up on the money, and it's rare. I find that when you said good products make it and get seen, I find that that's true, and money is rarely an issue unless there's other things going on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us again on this episode of Inside the Incubator. We'll be back next week with some more team members. Hopefully they'll come back from all their various meetings and join us. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Wei, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.